Welcome back to the Shadows of History, where we uncover the darkest tales of humanity's past. Today we're diving into a grim chapter, the 5 most horrific torture methods from ancient times. First, we travel to ancient Persia around the 5th century BCE, where they perfected a torture so vile it's known as Scaphism, or the boats. Picture this: a victim is stripped naked and trapped between 2 small boats, or hollowed-out logs with their head, hands and feet sticking out. They're force-fed milk and honey until they're sick, and then smeared with more honey to attract insects. Left floating in a stagnant pond under the blazing sun, the victim suffers as flies and other insects crawl into every exposed part of their body. The worst part? They're kept alive, fed daily to prolong the agony, sometimes for weeks, as infections and dehydrations slowly claim them. Scaphism was reserved for traitors or high-profile enemies, a public warning of Persia's ruthless justice. The Greek historian Plutarch describes how one victim endured 17 days of this nightmare. Can you imagine the torment? Next, we move to ancient Greece, specifically 6th century BCE Sicily, where the tyrant Phalaris commissioned a torture device so cruel it became legendary: the Brazen Bull. This was a hollow bronze statue of a bull with a door on its side. The victim was locked inside, and a fire was lit beneath. As the metal heated, the person inside roasted alive, their screams echoing through pipes in the bull's head, designed to sound like the bellowing of a beast. It was as much theatre as torture, meant to entertain crowds and terrify potential rebels. Now, let's talk about a method so infamous it's synonymous with suffering: crucifixion. While most associate it with Rome, it originated centuries earlier with the Persians and was perfected by the Romans by the 1st century BCE. Victims were nailed or tied to a wooden cross, left to hang in public for days. The agony came from slow suffocation. Every breath required pushing up against the nails or ropes, tearing flesh and draining strength. Dehydration, exposure and blood loss made it a drawn-out death, sometimes lasting up to a week. Crucifixion was a punishment for slaves, rebels and traitors, designed to humiliate and deter. The Roman historian Tacitus notes, thousands were crucified after slave revolts, their crosses lining roads as a grim warning. It was death as public theatre, and no one did it better than Rome. Our 4th method is flaying, the horrific act of skinning a person alive. Practiced across cultures, it was especially favoured by the Assyrians in the 9th century BCE. Victims were tied down and executioners used sharp blades to peel their skin in strips. The pain was unimaginable, and death came from shock, blood loss, or infection if the victim lasted that long. Flaying was both punishment and psychological warfare. Assyrian kings like Ashurbanipal boasted of flaying rebel leaders, sometimes draping their skins over city walls to terrify enemies. Finally, we come to the breaking wheel, a torture method used in ancient Europe, particularly by Germanic tribes and later refined in medieval times. By the 3rd century CE, it was a public spectacle. The victim was tied to a large wagon wheel, and executioners used iron bars to smash their limbs, breaking bones one by one. The wheel was then hoisted upright, leaving the victim to die slowly from shock, blood loss, or exposure, often while crowds jeered. Used for crimes like murder or treason, the breaking wheel was about maximum suffering and public deterrence. Roman sources describe it as a fate worse than death, and they weren't exaggerating. And there you have it, the 5 worst torture methods from ancient times, each a chilling reminder of how far humanity once went to enforce power and fear. From the boats of Persia to the wheels of Europe, these methods weren't just about punishment. They were about control, spectacle, and breaking the human spirit. What do you think? Was there a method even worse than these? Drop your thoughts in the comments. Hit that like button if you learned something dark today, and subscribe for more grim tales from history. Until next time, stay curious, and maybe don't watch this one before bed. Thanks for joining us in the shadows.